Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again if you are a returning viewer. And if you're not a returning viewer, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and of course, if you feel inclined, share with a friend. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So today we're going to be talking about e-bikes, more specifically pedal assist electric bikes. Those kind of bikes where when you pedal, there is a motor and a battery which injects even more forward momentum into your bicycle, right? So the amount of energy that you put in is vastly dwarfed by how fast you end up going on the bike, right? So you maybe put in the same amount of energy that you usually would go at 10 kilometers an hour on your bike, and instead you're doing 30 or 40 kilometers an hour on your bike, right? And I'm going to make the case today that e-bikes should be banned. Today's title is a teeny weensy bit clickbaity because I don't actually think they should be banned based on my own personal political and philosophical beliefs. I'm quite libertarian. I believe in freedom and liberty. And I think that if you've got the money and you're not hurting anybody else, you should be able to buy whatever the heck or hell you like, right? And so if you want to buy an e-bike, go buy an e-bike. That's absolutely fine. I don't think the government has any right to ban pretty much anything. I think as long as you're not hurting other people, you should be able to buy whatever you want. That's just my opinion. So yes, today's title, for the first time ever, is a little bit clickbaity. I know I get accused of clickbait by my haters all the time, but it's rarely the case. In this instance, I'll fully admit that it is kind of a little bit clickbaity, simply because although I'm making the case for banning e-bikes, I don't think the government should be allowed to tell you what you can and cannot buy. Right. Now, with all that out of the way, get the politics out of the way for a minute, let's talk about what's awful about e-bikes and why I think you shouldn't buy one, and why I think if you have a friend or colleague or fellow cycling buddy who is considering buying an e-bike, you should do everything in your power to convince them not to do it. The person who inspired me to do this video is Velofil, and he makes these wonderful cycling videos, and he made a cycling video all about e-bikes and the ludicrous nature of e-bike riders and how bad they are and how irresponsible they are on their e-bikes. And this is what inspired me to make this video. He is obviously concentrating on how badly e-bike riders ride their bikes at high speed, the kind of speeds that Pro Tour riders are doing without Pro Tour rider skill, as he mentions in his video. Go check his video out, go check his page out as well. But that's what inspired me to do today's video, so there you go. There's a lot to say about this, but let's start with the stuff that is actually very similar to my argument against electronic group sets. Okay, so my arguments against electronics group sets in previous videos was they're hard to maintain because the knowledge level that is required to understand how they work is much higher than normal bicycle, right? Normal bicycle, if you buy a traditional style bike, you can see all the working and moving parts on the bike pretty much. If something goes wrong, you can immediately tell what it is by just simply moving the levers around. You can go, oh, I've got a broken cable, a couple of dollars for a new cable, and you can fix it, right? That kind of thing. So my argument against e-bikes and electronic group sets is that the complexity that they bring with them, and e-bikes bring a whole new level of complexity when you start getting into planetary gearboxes and stuff like that. But when you start to get into that level of complexity, it means that the vast majority of people, like 99% of people out there, are not going to be able to repair their own vehicles. And that, for me, is part of the beauty of cycling. The issue with motor cars and motorbikes was always they were expensive and they take a lot of technical knowledge in order to maintain and repair, right? So it takes the power out of your hands because you have to send it to the garage to get it repaired, right? With a bicycle, all the power should be with you, okay, as the consumer. If you want to buy something offline, like a chain or a set of cogs to replace on your bike, you should be able to do it fairly easily. That's the whole point, in my opinion. Is to make the sport and the, even if you're using it for business or commuting, to make it accessible and cheap and easy to fix. And so e-bikes are an anathema to me because they are none of those things. They are not cheap. they're not particularly accessible for repairs and maintenance, and they're not easy to fix, okay? The next thing, which is similar to electronic group sets, is the environmental impact of buying such a thing. So with the e-group sets, you've got small lithium-ion batteries on board, right? Those small lithium-ion batteries are extremely toxic, extremely flammable and explosive, volatile. They can easily catch fire if they overheat, for example. They don't work very well in low conditions, in freezing conditions, for example. You can actually damage batteries by dropping the temperature too low. And when you're done with those batteries, they're almost never properly recycled. Recycling them is extremely costly. It's not economically viable, so people don't recycle them. Even when you send them to recycling centers, a lot of the time the governments are lying to you around the world. They're not recycled. They're simply thrown into landfill, thrown in the ocean, or worse, burned, and all those toxic chemicals go into the air and end up in the soil, and it's just awful. So all of those issues with those small lithium-ion batteries are there, and then with an e-bike, the battery's like this. So you've gone from this problem to this problem. The problem is much bigger. All the problems you had with the small batteries is vastly increased by these enormous batteries. And the problem with these batteries is they have a lifetime on them. That lifetime is obviously a lot shorter than a normal bicycle. And eventually you will have to dispose of that battery pack or that battery unit with all the cells inside it. And goodness knows where they're going to go and how they're going to be treated and how it's going to be broken down and destroyed. Okay? Not to mention, on top of all of that, the place where we get all these minerals from in order to make these extremely toxic and flammable volatile batteries is usually mined in places like Africa, and they're usually using slave labor to do it, often child labor. So the more demand we have for e-bikes, the more demand we have for these massive batteries, the more we're basically supporting industries which are enslaving people and, you know, making people do horrible, dangerous and dirty jobs that affect their health for an absolute pittance. You know, not even a few pennies a day some of these people make. So I think on a moral standpoint, it's immoral to buy an e-bike because of the environmental damage that you're producing and because of the human cost on it, okay? Now let's move on to the other parts of why I disagree with e-bikes. I don't actually understand, maybe somebody can explain it to me, what the point of an e-bike is. What are e-bikes used for? What is the purpose of an e-bike? And this is how I see it. If you're using the e-bike for commuting and for delivery, like a lot of delivery drivers, right, starting to use e-bikes, there are better tools for the job. If you're young and fit and you're a delivery driver, why not just use a normal bike, like a fixie or a road bike? You're going to get really fit riding it. It's going to be cheap. It's going to be environmentally friendly, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be low cost. You can chain it up anywhere. And you can go all day long on that bike. As long as you feed yourself and you drink enough, you can pretty much ride all day long on that thing. You never need to worry about charging it. These e-bikes, once they run out of charge, they become a dead weight, right? Nobody wants to be riding a dead e-bike up a hill. Nobody. Those things weigh a ton, right? So to me, having an e-bike for deliveries doesn't make much sense. The other options are fixie or a road bike or even a gravel bike or a, what do they call those, cargo bike, makes way more sense to me than an e-bike. And if you look at places like Holland, or the Netherlands, sorry, I spent a lot of time there when I had a German girlfriend who was studying over there at Dutch University, or a Dutch university, should I say. Spent a lot of time in Holland, and everybody's riding around on normal mechanical bicycles, and deliveries are done by mechanical bicycle, and people go to school and work. And what you notice is everybody's very slim and healthy and fit and tall and good looking. And as an English guy, when I turned up there, I felt very intimidated because I spent my entire time talking to all the Dutchmen like this. Hello. Now, I'm nearly 6 foot tall. I'm 5'11" and a bit. And everybody there is like 6'5". And I'm just surrounded by these Nephilim. And they're all good looking, and they're all slim, and they're all fit. So, like I say, when my German girlfriend was over there, I was extremely worried. But anyway, off that subject for now. So the idea of having an e-bike for those purposes, to me, seems pointless, because if you're fit enough to do delivery, you're fit enough to ride a mechanical bike, and the advantages, as far as I can see, are better with a mechanical bike. Now, of course, you can say, well, the e-bike is faster. But is it, though? I mean, yes, it is faster in theory, but there are speed limits in place on cycle tracks and on the road. And so you can't go any faster than you can, say, in a big city on the road or on the cycle track than you can on a mechanical bicycle. Yes, the amount of energy you have to put into it is less. But then if that's your attitude, why not just buy a moped with a small motor? And it's going to be significantly faster than an e-bike, and probably a lot cheaper, to be honest with you. You can probably pick up a moped cheaper than you can an e-bike. And that thing, with a full tank, you can probably do deliveries all day long. You're going to run out of fuel on the moped way less soon than you are with the e-bike. So, to me, it doesn't really, I don't see the argument. If you really care about the environment, you would use a mechanical bike. And if you really want to go faster, you would use a motorized bike. You wouldn't use an e-bike. So that's where I don't understand the point of the e-bike. I wanted to talk a little bit about stereotyping e-bike riders and why I think they're such terrible riders and bike handlers. And I think we see this in the Velofil video, but I've also heard this from other people complaining about e-bikers. So the first thing is, who are e-bikes aimed at? And from what I can tell from the marketing videos that I watch from the likes of GCN, is e-bikes are being aimed at people who usually would be fairly physically inactive. It's sold as, oh, you don't really have to pedal that hard because you've got an electric motor, okay? But you can go quickly. Okay, fair enough. What are those kind of people in general? Well, they're the kind of people who, unlike me and unlike maybe yourself, don't have good experience of cycling. I have experience of cycling over many years. I started out on relatively cheap, heavy bikes, and I slowly upgraded my bike, and I slowly got quicker over time as I built my fitness. But as I built my fitness, I built my experience, and I rode in races, and I rode in fast group rides. And I know what 50, 60, 70 kilometers an hour on a bicycle feels like. And I know how a bike handles at those speeds. And I know what to do in certain situations that may surprise more novice riders. And as you progress in the sport, like if you start off as a novice rider on a heavy bike, okay, as you progress in the sport slowly, as your fitness grows, so does your skill set. There isn't the case that you join your first group ride as a novice and you are maintaining high speeds in a bunch group. It generally doesn't happen. You simply can't keep up with the group. So like I say, it's a slow development of your skill set and your reflexes and your ability to see what's going on the road. And so that's safe because it allows you time to make sure that you are ready to travel at those kind of speeds. But you give someone who's a total novice or someone who's physically usually fairly inactive an e-bike, and all of a sudden they can do the same speed as a pro tour cyclist without any effort at all. They have no experience, no cycling etiquette, and they just have all the power in the world. With great power comes great responsibility, and they have great power, but they haven't worked out the responsibility side yet. That's the first aspect. And the other thing is as well, it's a little bit of the BMW mentality, right? The BMW cars. When we go driving in most places in the world, whether you're in Germany, UK, or pretty much anywhere in the world, Brunei, the BMW drivers tend to be quite bad. Why do they tend to be quite bad? They have quite an arrogant attitude because they're driving a very expensive, fast performance car on the road. They have this mentality or feel that maybe they're a little bit better than everybody else. And so they deserve to be at the front of the queue, or they deserve to pass you by, and so on and so forth, right? And it's that BMW mentality. And I think most people, if they got in a BMW, would act like that. because it's very easy to get carried away with thinking that you're going fast because you're somehow better than everybody else. It's got all to do with the engine in the car and the performance of the car, not the performance of the driver, right? There's no skill required with it. It's unearned achievement, if you like. And I think the same psychology can be applied to e-bikes. When someone gets on an e-bike and all of a sudden they're passing seasoned riders without any effort at all, I'm sure it must affect their psychology to the point where they start thinking, hey, I'm pretty good at this cycling thing. You know what? I might be a little bit better than everybody else. And it's that arrogance that develops slowly over time. And it is something that I think we're all susceptible to, that then produces these riders who think they're better than everybody else, think that somehow their performance is related to how good they are rather than the fact they've got a motor. Gives them a I need to be at the front mentality. It gives them the power to do that, no responsibility, and virtually no skill set. Let's look at it from a different perspective. So I've already said that if you're young and fit and using it for work, you don't need an e-bike, get a fixie or a normal bike. If you're middle-aged and got way too much money, just stick with mechanical bikes, dude. You don't need an e-bike. What do you need an e-bike for? Oh, I need it to commute to work. Normal bikes work fine for hundreds of years. Well, what do you need that for? You can ride 100 miles a day, no problem, on a normal bicycle. What do you need an e-bike for? Seriously. And then the final category of people, where I could almost see an argument for it, is the people who are physically incapable of riding a bicycle, right? Who are so old and decrepit or disabled that they can't pedal a bike. But then these are pedal assist e-bikes. So you still got to pedal anyway. So that isn't really a category of people that's going to buy an e-bike. If they're going to buy a bike, they're going to buy an electric moped, right? They're not going to buy a pedal assist e-bike, or they're going to buy a mobility scooter. So again, what is the purpose of the e-bike? I know a bunch of old guys who ride bikes. I know guys in their 60s coming on for 70 years old, and they're all riding road bikes, and they ride more miles than I do. And yet they go a bit slower than me, but they still get there, and they still have a wonderful time, and they've still got a big smile on their face when they turn up, and they still join plenty of big rides. And the fact that they're old and that they're pedaling on a proper mechanical bicycle keeps them fit, and so they don't age like other elderly people, and they do stay fitter, and they do enjoy life more, and they do stay healthier. If you go and then convert to an e-bike, it's guaranteed the amount of effort that you're going to put into riding that bike is going to be less than a mechanical bike. The amount of effort that you have to put into an e-bike is minimal. Like if you put in like 10% of the amount of effort, you're really not straining yourself. You're not putting any exertion on yourself in which to maintain your fitness. So if you're on an e-bike where the bike is doing the majority of work for you, and you can achieve the same kind of speeds on a mechanical bike with less effort, then you're going to put in less effort. You don't, like I say, if you can reach 30 kilometers an hour by doing 10 kilometer amount of effort, and I'm still putting in 30-30, right? Then I'm going to get fitter and stay healthier, and you're not. Your fitness is going to decrease until what you're capable of is only that 10 kilometer an hour input into the bike. Does that make sense? I'll give you, like I say, I'll give an example of this. One of the first jobs I ever had, it was actually the second job I ever had, was working in a leisure center. I used to work as a lifeguard, and I used to work in a gym as well. And there was a certain type of customer. They were overweight, usually female, okay? And usually they would come in pairs, teenagers or at college or at uni, and they would come in with these drinks to put in the treadmills, because the treadmills have got cup holders, right? And they would come in with these quadruple mochachinos with extra foam and froth and cream on the top, right? Like drinks that probably have 1,000 calories in them. And they stick them in the treadmill, and they'd walk with their friend like this. You know, and they'd be at walking pace, 2 or 3 kilometers an hour, and supping on something that's bringing in like hundreds of calories. And the calorie meter on the treadmill for the 15 to 30 minutes they would spend on the treadmill would be like 5 calories, and they just introduced several hundred calories in. And sometimes I would overhear their conversations, and sometimes these girls would complain that they weren't losing any weight. Well, duh, and then you see other people come in the gym and they're like this on the treadmill. They're doing their best Tom Cruise impression, right? Running on the treadmill, pumping the iron, doing all the press-ups and the planks and all this kind of thing. And those people stayed fit and healthy, but they were dripping with sweat after a session. They'd be in there for half an hour, and the whole time they were there, they'd be working. So this is my point with the e-bikes. If you buy an e-bike, it's going to make you lazy, or it's going to make you less healthy than you are right now. Right now, I'm not that healthy, but I'm pretty fit, okay? My fitness is fairly decent because I ride a mechanical bicycle. If I switch to an e-bike and all of a sudden I'm doing 50 kilometers an hour without even trying, where's the incentive for me to get fitter? It's the opposite, right? There's the opposite there. So my conclusion would be this. Nobody actually needs an e-bike. It's like electric scooters for fat people, the mobility scooters for fat people. Fat people do not need mobility scooters. What fat people need is a bicycle or to go for a bloody walk, right? This idea that we have to provide mobility scooters for fat people is ridiculous because fat is not genetic. I'm sorry, it's just not. When I eat too much and don't do very much, I get fat. Isn't it amazing? And then when I get on a bicycle and I work out, I lose weight. Isn't it weird? And if you look at videos of the streets of New York in the 1920s, which are available online, you can Google it right now and look it up on YouTube. You can watch a film taken in the 1920s and 30s of people walking about on the street in New York. People are slim, they're well dressed, they're healthy looking, they're attractive, okay? You don't see a single fat person. You can watch the entire movie and you never see a single fat person walk by. They don't exist because in those days, people used to walk everywhere. They used to ride bicycles. They used to keep fit and they didn't eat so much. So there you go. So e-bikes are the mobility fat person scooter of the bicycle world. And you should discourage anyone from buying one because of the environmental impact, because of the human impact, because of the fact it's going to make you a lazy tubby, and because it's a completely pointless contraption which serves no useful purpose. This is why you don't need an e-bike. This is my commuting and shopping bike. It's a steel frame with the pannier rack on it and the mud guards and everything without the grinder. It weighs about 13 kilos, and riding it here to the shops today, no problem whatsoever, simply because down here I've got a triple chainring with a 30 on it, in the smallest gear, and at the back I've got another 30, so I've got a 1-to-1 gear ratio in 30-30, and cycling on the flats, no problem. Even cycling uphill, you don't notice the weight of the bike. Yes, I don't go very fast, but this bike wasn't designed for going fast. It was designed to fulfill the purpose of commuting, going to the shops and so on and so forth. So if you are an older gentleman or lady, or you have, fitness issues, just get a bike with a better gear ratio and you can spin along quite happily like you're not pushing anything at all, and you will do it under your own steam. And when you achieve better and better fitness, you will have done it yourself without the need for a motor. The human being on a bicycle is the most efficient animal on the planet, right? When they looked at all the animals on the planet and the motion of those animals, how they move, the locomotion of those animals, and they ranked them on a scale, right? The most efficient animal was something like a condor, okay, or an albatross. They can fly forever on their wings, just using the air currents and everything, just flying around. They're using very little energy to do that, okay? When they put the human came way down the ranking for efficiency. When they put the human on the bicycle, it was way more efficient for energy than even the birds, even the condors and things. So the human being on a bicycle is already the most efficient form of transportation on the planet You don't need to put a motor on it. You just don't. Okay? So there you go. That is my argument against e-bikes. Now, I don't think they should be banned, but I really think that if you're a friend of a friend who's thinking about doing this, yeah, you should really try and discourage them. Those are my conclusions. If you have any questions, comments, if you disagree with me, of course, I'm sure some of you will. If you already bought an e-bike and you want to tell me how amazing it is and how I'm totally wrong, please do stick it in the comments below. I will reply to every single comment. There we go. What fun. See you in the next video. And as always, whatever bike you're riding, stay safe. Bye.